Hey everybody. So yeah, last time we ended up having kind of a bug, and I kind of dashed through it, like kind of explaining what was going on. And basically, what happens is I add a light here on line 272, and then when the first thing I do on 229 is I push that light item onto the light items. And I was just kind of like, blah, 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 that's the issue. I'll fix it next time. I feel like after thinking about it, I was kind of like, well, okay. So normally I would commit. I like to commit per video, but since we have a bug, I don't like committing bugs. So that. And then actually, I guess it makes sense for me to show what the bug is. And the bug is, just in case, because, probably most of the people that watch this video didn't look at the last video. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mesh, and in this, this mesh is going to be my wall, and the wall is 100 wide or 10 wide, no, 100 wide, and 100 tall. 10 tall, I guess, was plenty. And this wall is a Phong. So that means it responds to light, and it responds uh, it responds to light, so you can't see it right now because there's no light. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a light. Um, okay, so now what we have is a spotlight, um, and it's just kind of a like little dot, a little spot, and it just radiates in all directions, and that's why it looks like this. So um, now what happens is so I'm going to make this my light. Um, and I'm just going to do O1 just so it's a little easier to kind of visualize what's going on here. And then if I go and I change this to a spotlight, see, now we have two lights. Now I am a little bit, let's see, where's my mesh? Did I move my mesh? I moved it to -2, so I don't really understand why the light is not showing. Let's see, what if I make this a 2? Ah, okay, so the light is not showing. Let's make it a 3. Oh, let's make it a 1. Okay, so the light wasn't showing because the light was, I guess this might be a thing of itself, but the light is shining on 0, 0, and it was sitting at 0, 0 at the same time. So let's see if I move that mesh closer. Now, sorry, I'm doing some experiments. Okay, so what I did was I moved the wall closer to us, and the light's sitting at 1, so it's like highly, highly um, um, concentrated. See if I do it -1, it's a little farther out, -2. So that's just how spotlights work. But you might have noticed a second ago that we have two lights now. Okay, so here's the disservice I did to you guys that watched yesterday, you all that watched yesterday's uh, video. And the thing is that um, I said, oh, okay, when I convert this light, I call it add light, and then add light adds this light item, and that's why there's two here, which I think makes total sense. Like, and this is like kind of the thing that happens a lot. It makes what I'm saying makes total sense. I think anybody who watched that video and anyone who's watching right now can make sense of that. Like, oh, I have a list of light items, and now I have two. But what I didn't really do is um, like I only know that because I've been working on this stuff. I'm very, very familiar with this code, and I've been working on software development for a very long time. A new person would not be expected to really understand um, this stuff. Like you wouldn't if when you if you, there's nothing magical about me knowing what it is. What's magic? It's just an experience thing. So like it's kind of like when you man, this I'm pretty sure that's a recruiter, and he will not leave me alone. He keeps calling. I'm going to turn off my phone. Um, So this okay, so that's kind of like the way I did that was like it's like if you were taking your car in and you were like they saw what kind of car you drove up and you said, oh, there's this clicking. He goes, oh yeah, yeah, your fuel pump's going bad. And you're just like, wait, I said there's clicking, and he's just like, no, he's already seen this 100 times. People with your kind of car drive up, and then they mention clicking, and it's always the fuel pump. Or like you call the air conditioning people, and you're like, the power went out last night, and then when it came back on, my 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 air conditioner wasn't working anymore. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's this. What kind of air conditioner you have? This. Oh, okay, I know what it is. Right? It's just like experience. But the first time when they were first getting started, they had to analyze it. They had to go in and go through it and analyze it. And then the second time, they saw the same set of events and analyzed it. And third set of events. That's so if that didn't make like if what I the words I said makes sense to you, but like you wouldn't be able to do that. It's only because there was all this analysis that I've done in the past. So if okay, so this is a funny bug, right? Because what we're seeing is two things, and in Angular you see this kind of bug all the time. And what because basically you're drawing things on the screen based on the number of items that are in a list. And if you don't remove an item from the list, when you create a new one, a lot of times you end up with duplicates. And these are funny bugs because a lot of times, like somebody will get a story and they're like, "Oh, I want the ability to convert a light from a point light to a spotlight," and they give you all these things that you need to do. I need to be able to change it to this, that, blah blah blah. They do all this analysis, and you work through it, and many times the creation and then the working, making modifications and all that stuff is not on the same screen that you might see a double item show up because of a bug like this. And so this is a kind of bug that will get through to production because everything's working. So nothing's obvious. And a lot of times QA, they have these long scripts and they just figure out some place to slide this test into their existing long scripts. And in their tests, they never do go back to the place where you would see a double. Um, duplicates. So then since it doesn't really cause any major breakage, since people can still do their job and all that, it never does make it to, it may be broken. It might be broken for weeks, maybe months before it gets back, a ticket gets back to a developer to fix. So like, you may not have the context of, oh, by the way, this broke when I made this change. And so if I was assigned this task and all I know is for some reason in some, oh, and then that's another thing is that when you get this bug, usually it's not even the right steps to create it. Like somebody will be like, oh, and then if I go to animation and then I go to camera and then I change it to an orthographic camera and then I change it back and then I go to my meshes and I make some change here, then I go to lights and I see a double. So that can be very, very like confusing because their steps may not actually reproduce it, or it could be something way back in their steps that caused the problem and they don't notice it till 50 steps later. So basically what you have to do is you just have to start from scratch. So in this, the first thing I would do if I saw this bug is I would go to the light manager and I would see, okay, what are we looking at here? And basically, um, you want to find, whatever it is that you're looping through. So basically, I check to see if there's light lists, and then I set the data source to the filtered light lists. So it's got to be something in this light lists. That would be my first guess. Then I would go into the component itself, into the TypeScript, and I would just search for light list, and um, so this dot light list comes from ThreeJS light list values, um, and it happens anytime anything changes. So let's go to light list values. So our light list values get set by this light list signals. So now you go and check what light lists, what propagates this light list signal to happen, what causes that to happen, and basically that happens here when we add a light. We update these light items. So it seems like what we have is a problem with light items. So what we could do now is there's just console log. And I always like to add like a label. So light items. And then this dot light items. Okay, so basically now what we can do is we can go and we can open up our console and we can just say, show me anything that has light items in it. And that'll hide any, like, because a lot of times when you work at places, they have a ton of lights and basically, or a ton of console logs already. And so this is a good way to only look at the console logs that you care about. So I'm going to add a light. Okay, so this is my light items. And I have one light, and it's ID number 13. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit it. And I'm going to change it to a spotlight. And see how now we have two light items. They're identical. And they are likely referencing the exact same thing, because if you change one, it changes the other, right? So so we see the Z position. So position is no fun. Let's look at the name. So let's just hi. So you notice this one says hi in here. Kind of surprises me that this didn't update. Sometimes this does update to like the latest. Maybe if we close it and open it. Oh, it came again. And no, that's, oh yeah, that was the first one. That's the second one. So, but basically what we've done is we've shown that we have ID 15. This item is in this list twice. So this is a list and it has a reference to the exact same item, which is another thing that's very, I don't know if it's unique to JavaScript. I think it is, or it might just be unique to scripting languages. I don't think this is an issue like in PHP or in .NET Core or anything like that, or C Sharp. But basically this and this guy, both of these guys are actually references to the same piece of memory, so they're identical. But so basically, the question is, okay, well, what do we want to do? And when you're thinking about what you want to do, so as a software developer in 2000, since probably 2000, so back before 2000, when you were a software developer, it was kind of like buyer beware. I remember programming in this language called Fortran 77, where you could change the value of the characters of the numbers. So other programmers that were like, they would say, for job protection, they would change the value of 7, the character 7 to like 9, and the value of character 1 to like 24 or something like that. And then they would have some sort of pattern in the head. And anytime you were doing any kind of arithmetic, you had to say, like, if you want to add 1 plus 1, you had to just know that character 5 was 1. So you'd have to say 5 plus 5 equals 1. It made the code, they would try really hard to make the code unreadable. That is no longer, as far as I know, not acceptable in this industry anymore. And so your job in a modern software environment in 2024 is to write code that the computer can compile into behavior and that another human being can compile into rational thoughts. So what I'm trying to figure out here, what I'm trying to figure out is it better for me to do it here in add light and say, do not add a light item if it already exists? Or is it better for me to do it in update light, saying like remove the light item so that it gets added? Both are awful. They're both awful solutions because in both cases they're you're not really updating a light. It's a side effect, right? You're 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 adding a new light. But the thing is like you do it in the update function. It's just like sometimes the world just doesn't work out to where you can do everything in like ways that make sense. So what will be easier for a developer? Will it be easier like for me in the future, since I'm the only one who works on this? Would it be easier for me in update light to look at a comment here in update light and say, oh, okay, that's gone. So I'm changing things. So blah, 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 blah. And then will I have to, if maybe an import or some other process, have to duplicate that? Or would it be easier for, the future developer, who is me, to see a note in here that says sometimes lights have to be uh, ha- have to be added after, all right, even though they've already been added. So don't add one if it's already in there. Um, and then the nice thing about that is I will know that if I use add light anywhere, it'll always work. Um, I won't have to duplicate that anyplace else. So basically, we have two bad solutions, or less than ideal solutions. I think one's a little bit less ideal than the other because one of them sort of will make sure that we can have the dry, the do not repeat yourself. We won't have to do it again. So I could just say like um, something like this. Uh, let's see. Something along this light, but instead of um, like I'll call it existing light, and then say inside of light items, and then it's going to be a light item. That's fine that it is that, but this is going to be a light interface, not a light item. So basically, I'm going to say, hey, if it's got an existing light, then don't push it. So, or another way is to say, if existing light is equal to undefined, then push our light item. Now, so this light, and this is actually what I pointed at yesterday. Oh, all this does is force the array to force the JavaScript to write light items to a new memory address. So it's like basically copy everything from the old memory address and put it in the new memory address. And the only reason we do that is because Angular has a problem and it's not just Angular, React, everybody has a problem determining if something is changed inside of a memory address. So what you do is you kind of hack, and this is just a normal standard hack that we do throughout the whole everything, through all of JavaScript, to give it a new memory address so that the front end recognizes that there was a change. Now, this is exactly why they're trying to go zoneless in Angular. and they're trying to make it to where you don't have to do this hack anymore. Uh, to where literally all you have to do is say, "Hey, Signal, I'm updating," and it will update regardless. I think that, or anyways, that's what I think. I'm not like on the Angular team or anything like that, but I believe that was the whole idea. So I think this is going to work. I think what we're saying is go ahead and look in the thing. If you don't find it, do that. So let's just see if it works at all. Like sometimes things like this don't work. So I'm going to add the mesh and I'm going to move it back to -1, and then I'm going to add a light. Well, let me go ahead, and that doesn't do any good if it doesn't care about light. Turn it into a Phong. Then I'm going to take this light and I'm going to add a light. Okay, so we see that it's there. I think I need to move it to -1 or we won't be able to see it. Or I mean to 1 or we won't be able to see it. And then let's go ahead and convert this to a spotlight. Okay, so nothing, you couldn't really tell if it worked or not. I think mostly because this is too small, but it seems like it probably worked. But let's go back to the mesh and make its width 10. Oh no, it doesn't look like it. Oh yeah, it did 10. I was like, oh no. Yeah, so that worked. Now we have a spotlight and we do not have duplicate items in there. So the bug is smooshed. Yeah, 21 minutes. Bug fixing does take a lot of time. And then like I said, I don't know that it would have been, that's interesting. I don't know how useful, like if I could have fixed it a lot quicker with just my instincts just going, oh, okay, all I have to do is this. But now probably the most important part of this is to put a comment up here. And if you happen to work in a place, if I don't know how to say this, I need to be sensitive. Okay, if you're the kind of person who thinks that you should that comments are a sign of bad coding, then you know, I respect your opinion, but we 100% vehemently disagree, and this is one of the handful of things that I will go to war with at a job. I strongly believe that comments are not all code can explain itself, especially when you're put in situations where you're only choosing from a collection of bad choices. Yeah, so I think comments are extremely important. But if it takes you more than a 4 or 5 words, you really should think about it. But basically, sometimes sometimes a new light is added for changes. Maybe 5 words is a little bit too strict. Sometimes an extra light is added for changes, and then put like in parentheses like changing. Let's go ahead and make this. I'm going to expand that. Changing from point light to spotlight. So a new light must be created for the scene, but the light item should not be re-added for should not be added to, or there will be a duplicate. So, and then in real life, like at in real life, at a job, you probably will have this tied to a bug. Um, so in Git, generally your commit, or at least your commit would typically have the bug that it's fixing. So then somebody could easily go and look to see more details if this isn't enough for them. But just kind of try to imagine you're a brand new coder and you see sometimes a light is added for changes, like changing from point light to spotlight. So a new light must be created for the scene, but the light item should, oh my gosh, not be re-added, or there will be a duplicate. And that should do her. I think what's next is to, let me see. What's next is probably to add some of the some of the new properties. There was like I think you've got to be able to say, oh, there was like a target. We definitely do that one last, but you can say a point where it's looking at. You can say you could say I don't know. I wonder if you can say intensity. Yeah, so we can control the intensity. I would imagine you control the color. Yeah, but some of these are new, so, and I had mentioned that in my last chat GPT, so I guess there's no reason to go into that. So anyways, yeah, that was a bug fix. This code is ready to be committed and pushed, or at least committed into the branch. And next time, I think, oh no, next time we need to, there was like a note of to do. Yeah. That would actually be very interesting. Let's go ahead and animate this guy. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, animations are pretty cool. So let's say have it start at -2, end at 2. Oh my god, that's so cool. Let's try our Y. Position. Let's see. -2 and 2. And let's try Z. I'm very curious about Z. So this is going from 2 and ending at 0. So let's change that around. So 0, I don't think we'll be able to see it. Oh, we can. Oh, yeah, because it's off looking. Oh, that is so freaking cool. 2, 5. Yeah, that's awesome. Now I kind of want to try zeros. This is the best part of like adding new functionality, as opposed to like the last set of videos where all we really got to do was, oh my god, that's so cool. It's like an explosion. And so that means, like, for a timer, for example, a countdown, I think, well, what happens if it's -5? Yeah, so you can't see it until it gets to the, oh, -50. Yeah, so yeah, now that would be really cool to end a timer with, like, on the at the 1.5 second mark or whatever. It's like you see, 3, 2, 1. But anyways, yeah. So this has gone real long, 30 minutes. Sorry guys. Yeah, bug fixing takes a while, and then experimenting, playing around with the new features. I just can't help myself. Anyways, happy coding, everybody. Bye.